This is the Panama Canal. One of the 7 most strategic waterways on planet Earth, and by far the most strategic for the United States. My name is Michael Yon. I'm an American. I grew up in the United States, in Florida, went off to the Army, but eventually I became a writer. And then I became a war correspondent. Of course, I was much skinnier then, and I've studied war quite a lot. The highest form of warfare is information war. Spent most of my life in Asia, Middle East, Europe. I've seen a lot of things, and so the world looks differently to me than it looks to a lot of people. What's clearly going on here is a struggle for at least 4 of the major chokeholds that are in the open. One is here, right? And the other, Panama Canal. And another is Suez. And we're clearly going for it. And Trump just said, it was just in the news, how he wants American ships to have free passage, our military and commerce, through the Suez and through here, right? What's happening now in Gaza is not about Jews versus Muslims. It's about energy off of Gaza. It's about taking the Suez Canal with Greater Israel, destabilize Egypt, eventually take the Suez Canal. What's happening is we're trying to take this one, and we don't want China to have this, for sure. And we're trying to take Suez and Bab al-Mandeb and Strait of Hormuz. So this thing going on with Iran is about Strait of Hormuz and routes there, right? If you have the Strait of Hormuz, then, you're choking down Russia, you're choking down. That's power. That's power, like taking this is power. That's why China is working so hard to take this. Panama would be important even without the canal. Even without the canal, this is vital terrain, right? But it does have the canal, which makes it incredibly important. And this road right here goes straight to the Darien.
For the folks out there that have no idea what the Darien Gap is, can you give them just like a really beginner idea and why it's so important when it comes to immigration?
The reason I spend so much time in Panama, partly the canal, and also the Darien Gap, and some other reasons, but this is just vital terrain on multi-dimension vital terrain, right? Any one of which would make me be here. If it was just the canal, I would be here. If it were just the Darien Gap, I would be here, right? The Darien Gap. If you look on a map, or if you've got one in your mind, you can see the Isthmus of Panama connects to Colombia at a big jungle area. That's the Continental Divide. There's mountains out there. It's not impassable. Spaniards and Indians have been passing there for centuries. The Indians have lived out there for apparently thousands of years. There's paths all over the place out there. It's like ant trails everywhere, right? And there have been. You can look at old maps from the Spaniards from the 15 and 1600s. They have gold mines mapped out in the Indian trails and that sort of thing. So the aliens who are coming up are using old Indian and old Spanish trails, right? It's not like, hey, they came out there with machetes and found a new path through the jungle. They just walked up the path that the Indians have always used, right? So after they come to the Darien Gap, way down in the jungle down there, they come over this bridge. So this is not difficult to cut it off. But if you want it to be hardwired so that you can invade Panama, so that you could, in other words, they're not coming in by visa, they're not coming in through tourist visas or whatever. You could go from road anywhere in Canada or Alaska. You can go right down this highway right here and go all the way to a place called Yavita in Darien Province, Panama. And there the road stops. So for about 60 miles, there's no roads. So that's why they call it the Gap. Actually, in Spanish, they call it Tampon del Darien, the tampon of Darien, the plug of Darien, right? They call it the plug because it's a defensive plug, right? So we call it the Gap because there's no road. They call it the plug because that's how we keep our enemies out. And so it's long been a lawless area. It's huge for smugglers. The FARC, which is a communist insurgency operating down in Darien and in Colombia for many years and other parts. They've operated there quite a lot, drug smugglers, of course. And it's been lawless. It's been, even since the Spanish days, it's been law of the jungle in the Darien. It's very intense. I've been in a lot of jungles around the world, and some are quite intense. Well, jungles are all intense by their nature, but some are more intense than others. And this one is on the intensity scale because of the law of the jungle that's out there. It's quite dangerous. I mean, the biggest danger is actually humans. So once you get through the Darien Gap, you can get on a bus and go right down this road that you hear in the background and go to the United States on the buses, which they do in huge numbers. During Biden's time, about 1.4 million just in those 4 years came through just the Darien Gap. Does not include flows through Guatemala or Mexico. Many of them will start in Nicaragua, which is upstream, because Venezuela and Nicaragua and Cuba all cooperate with each other, so many will fly straight to Nicaragua and bypass the Darien Gap. But the Darien Gap is vital because 1.4 million came through approximately in just those 4 years. And that doesn't include the other years before. And although that was the heaviest they ever saw. But it's called the Darien Gap because there's no road for about 60 miles. But they're working on it now. In fact, people keep saying, no, they're not. And I'm like, hey, let me tell you who found it. I did, right? They are absolutely 100% building a road to Panama. I mean, from Panama to Colombia. I've had Panamanian government tell me they're not doing it. The reason there's no road in the Darien Gap is because we didn't want a road there. Because it's a military, it's almost a jungle moat. It's a defensive measure. It's a defensive measure against invasion, and it's also a biological defensive measure. If you create famines, you'll create what's called HOP, human osmotic pressure. Human osmotic pressure is the push and pull of migration. There are certain things that create intense HOP. One is war, one is intense pandemic, and one is intense famine, right? Like widespread famine. That creates a lot of HOP. And these things go together. Pandemic, famine, and war is like it's a triangle of death, right? And again, biblical, it's straight out of the Bible. And like pretty much everything that you think you made up, it's probably in the Bible, or at least in some way. It's kind of weird how that plays out. It's like a survival manual. But so if I were going to create an invasion of the United States, I would do it through the Darien Gap. I would build a road. That's why I kept looking for a road. Are they going to build a road? And now they are, right? And so now there's temporary, at the moment, the flows are almost to zero. Now that President Trump's been in office, the flows to the Darien Gap are maybe 0.5% of what they were at this time last year.
What were they at this time last year?
It could be a couple thousand a day. Yeah, it could be quite a lot. It depends on if it's rainy or dry season or that sort of thing. I mean, I've seen flows like 5,000 or 6,000 a day, right?
Wow.
And so, yeah.
And what kind of people are coming? Who are they?
Well, in 2023, it was more than 500,000 people just in 2023, and more than 25,000 of those were Chinese, just through the Darien. But a lot of the Chinese don't go through there. They go through Mexico or Canada or other student visas. A lot come through Bahamas and wash up on the shores of Florida and other routes. But in any case, Iranians, huge amounts of Afghans, Iranians, 150 countries. I mean, basically Africa, you know. I mean, I haven't seen any South Africans come through. But
Iranians?
pretty much,
Why so many Iranians?
Good question. I think there's multiple reasons. One is, like the Chinese, I think some are actually migrants, but others are clear some sort of formations, right? And Iranians too. Some of these Iranians coming in, to me, they look like military people. Like straight up, and I've got incredible videos and interviews, and sometimes like one guy is standing at parade rest, you know, his hand behind his back, perfect teeth. He looks like he could snap somebody's head off and kick it down the road type guy. Super polite, you know. Anytime I meet one of these like super polite guy, perfect everything, I'm like, that dude's a killer, you know. And it's like, and we talked with him for quite a while. I was down there with Masako Ganaha and Ann Vandersteel. I took Laura Loomer down. That was all on the same trip. She interviewed the guy as well. So there's a lot of Iranians, huge amounts of Afghans. Some undoubtedly will be Taliban. I mean, of course, I spent 2 years in Afghanistan, right? So when I talk with Afghans, sometimes I know exactly where they came from, right? And Nepalese come through in large numbers.
So do you think it's a real concern that there might be sleeper cells inside the United States?
I don't think it's a real concern. I think it's a real fact, right? I mean, it's not like maybe it's going to happen 100%. I mean, the question is, how many, how big? It's going to be a lot. And some of these cells, there's different ways that cells form. One way is they could just come in as a cell. another way is they meet there and they were already trained together maybe in some other country. Like one that we met down in the Darien, his name was Lushan Zhao. I think he probably went to their language school at Luoyang, right? I mean, he was a very, we tracked him back quite a lot. Anyway, not to go into that, but we've got a lot of video of this guy. He seemed like he was probably MSS, Ministry of State Security. They're the ones who run the Confucius Institute. There's one right down the road from us, right? Some seem to come through as actual cells or units. There's groups that come through, but every once in a while I see one, I'm like, that's like a unit, right? All the same boots or whatever, good condition. Iranians coming through with the same backpack, you know, so you can't make up this stuff. But the Iranians, they have a good relationship with Venezuela. And Venezuela, of course, has been helping to invade the United States. So Iranians can fly to Venezuela and get a new passport, Venezuelan passport. And you can't tell them apart, right? I mean, Venezuelan and an Iranian, they look basically the same to people, right? Maybe if you could pick up some texture and nuance to their body language, but for the average person, they look the same, right? And by the way, there are a lot of people in the Middle East who speak Spanish, right? Fluently, right? There's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. There are a lot of Arabs that live here, a huge amount. There was a huge terrorist attack here, not huge, it blew up an airplane in 1992 or 93, and within 24 hours there was also a big explosion in Argentina, which killed about, I think, 70, wounded about 200. The airplane crash here killed about, it was a bomb, blew up, I think it killed 21 or 22. Those were apparently related. And they were attacking Jews, right? So the attack down in Argentina was on Jews, and the one here was attacking Jews. I've talked to one of the family members here, actually. So it was within 24 hours. So there's a huge Arab community here. There's a huge Jewish community here. There is a huge Chinese community here. A lot of people from a distance, they look at Panama and they think it's Latins. You know, it's like, no. It's like the main influencers here in this government, believe it or not, there's a heavy Jewish influence and a heavy Chinese influence in the government here. If we end up in global famines, which I think we're going to see a lot of famines around the world. When I say global famines, I don't mean everybody in the world starving at once. I mean famines in different parts. I think we're going to see that. And if that happens, that'll create a huge amount of human osmotic pressure. If there's famines in South America, they can go right through the gap, especially once they've got that road, right? But again, 1.4 million went through when it was hard, right? And so when that road is built, they don't even have to finish the road. Just the closer you get to connecting the roads, the less distance you have to walk before you can get on a bus, right?
And who kind of controls the trails in the Darien Gap?
Senafront, which is on the Panamanian side, is like the Panamanian Border Patrol, or sort of military. They're not supposed to have military, but they're kind of military. They're very professional. They're very serious people. I've been out with them quite a lot, and just talked with one of the former commanders a couple weeks ago. They don't, but nobody really controls it. Nobody really controls the jungle. You can just influence it, right? And the drug smugglers and the cartels, and of course, there'll be people within the governments, as there are people in our government or the Mexican or Canadian governments who are part of the cartels. So these things are always blended, right? It's never like they're wearing red shirts and we're wearing blue shirts or yellow shirts or black or whatever. It's always blended. It's always brackish water. Like U.S. Border Patrol, there's been smuggling going on the Texas-Mexican border since at least the cotton days, when they put a tariff on cotton, which is, you know, when was that? 170 years ago or so? Sorry for my memory, but that's when smuggling really started picking up in Texas, right? Was like way back then. So ever since that time, there's been a lot of smuggling of different things, whether it's money or cotton or drugs or humans or whatever, right? Whatever's beneficial to smuggle, because it's just a business. But over time, you know, people in Border Patrol, they're family members with people in the cartel. I mean, they're in the cartels, right? I mean, so it's very blended, because it's just everything you touch touches you. Everything you associate with will end up, you get intermarried and all these sorts of things. So it's quite thick. It's not like there's separate sides. It's just untrue. When you go to the Texas-Mexico border, again, I've been across the entire U.S. southern border, all the way from Boca Chica at SpaceX to San Diego, I spent a lot of time down there. A lot of that was on the Mexican side as well. And it's blended, it's not separate. And so I see this all over the world, these blended areas. In some borders, it's a pretty sharp demarcation at some borders around the world. In others, it can be quite blended. In our border, way blended. Where does Mexico start and Texas end? Depends on who you ask, really. I mean, there's the border, but culturally, it's blended.
And have you seen any drug trafficking, human trafficking going through the Darien Gap?
Oh, that's every day. I mean, I've seen personally with my own eyes, tens of thousands of people come through the Darien Gap. I mean, I spent months down there, right? What are the cartels? What is human smuggling? Like, are the taxi drivers that pick up people, are the bus drivers human smugglers? The buses that come up here, but they're sanctioned by the government. If the bus drivers smugglers? Ask yourself that. Are the taxi drivers that take migrante, are they smugglers? The piragua drivers, the canoe drivers out in the jungle, are they smugglers when the government knows they're doing it, right? And helps them load the boats. If those are smugglers, then it follows that the U.S. Border Patrol is a huge smuggler, right? My friend Jason Jones, he'll often say he blames a lot on the Mexican cartels, and he's very knowledgeable about Mexican cartels. And he'll put a lot on their shoulders and say it's the Mexican cartels. And I'm like, yes, but Jason, the Mexican cartels help the migrante get through the Mexican border, where our guys then put them on. Sorry, I was looking at something. Our Border Patrol, again, I've seen thousands of people loaded onto the buses, and I've got video this close of our Border Patrol loading them up. So that would make our Border Patrol smugglers, full stop. I mentioned that to Laura Logan when I took her down here, and she pushes back on that, like, no, that's not smuggling. I'm like, well, then if that's not smuggling, what the Mexican cartels do is not smuggling. And and a lot of people blame the Mexican cartels for what's going on, which is nonsense. They're just one component along the routes. Because remember, they came through Guatemala, they came through Honduras, they came through Nicaragua, they came through Costa Rica, they came through Panama, they came through Colombia. How did they get to Ecuador? How did they get to Venezuela? How did they get to Brazil? The big smugglers, the huge overarching smuggler is the United Nations. That's the biggest one. And IOM, International Organization for Migration, who has a headquarters almost within eyesight. Actually, you can see this bridge from their headquarters, so you can see their headquarters from here, but it's a little bit hazy today.
And what is their motive, the UN?
I don't know what's in their minds and in their hearts, so I don't know what their motive is. I know what they're doing. What they're doing is destroying Europe, Japan, Australia, Canada, United States. They're destroying here. They're destroying many places. And the IOM is right over there. I've told Trump's people many times, if you're deadly serious about stopping all this, you will defund them, and you'll start arresting people that are involved, like Amy Pope, who's running around the world right now. She's on Twitter every day over in Haiti or Jordan or Chile or at the Vatican for the Pope's funeral and yada yada, right? So Amy Pope, the chief of IOM, actually she's just a purple head without the purple, but IOM is the chief engine. Of course, there are others like HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, which is directly responsible for huge numbers of people who will kill Jews, who are now in America, who were funded by Jewish money on HIAS.org. When I say that, everybody loses a gourd. Oh, you're anti-Semitic. Have fun with that, because I'm telling you, go to HIAS.org, and it's got a long list of Shapiros and others who are giving money to HIAS.org, and HIAS is one of the chief invasion forces in the Darien Gap, period. They bring people over from Africa, they bring them in through Europe, they bring them in, and they go to their website, all the maps are there, where they're operating, they're asking for money, they're operating in the Darien. I've eaten breakfast with them many times. They don't like to eat breakfast with anymore. Apparently they noticed I talked bad about them in front of millions of people. But the bottom line is, when I said this in Texas, I was giving a speech and I said, you're gonna hear people screaming Allahu Akbar in the mall, right? Who will have come through the Darien Gap, and there goes a ship going out, who were helped directly by HIAS, and I mean directly. HIAS has an office down in Darien province on the edge of the gap next to a camp called San Vicente. I know that office well because I almost leased it, but they leased it before me. It's right next to the Tenose Hotel, right next to the San Vicente camp. I call that China camp. That's where I see so many Iranians and Afghans coming through. Highest is openly helping them wearing their uniforms. I mean, they got their highest maps. I've got video of highest showing everybody where to go. You know, so when I say this, when they start shooting up golf courses in Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach, and I say highest did this, people are gonna go anti-Semite, and I'm gonna go, who's the anti-Semite? You're the one who gave them money to come kill Jews in America and Canada, right? Seriously, this is pretty hardcore.
Is highest also incentivizing the migration into Europe of all the Muslims?
100%, yep. They're only one, they're not the only one. There's Catholic charities, which the Pope always refused to denounce. And when I'm in Texas or Mexico, I'm always talking about Catholic charities. But when I'm down here, I'm talking about highest because I don't never see Catholic charities here. I see Norwegian Refugee Council, I see Doctors Without Morals, I see Red Cross, of course, they're handing out maps as well. Quite a few other groups. But the chief engine down here is IOM and highest, right?
Can you describe what IOM is?
IOM is part of the United Nations. The United Nations took over our former U.S. Army South headquarters down the canal a couple miles, and highest, I'm sorry, highest as well, but United Nations has their headquarters there now. It used to be our military headquarters, now it's the United Nations headquarters. Literally our headquarters. They took it, right? Because our people have been weak and stupid and actually gave it to them, and we fund them. That's why I keep telling to the Trump team, who do listen to me daily for whatever reasons, despite all the bad things I say, they still back and forth close to him. And I've told them right from the get-go, before the inauguration, if you're not defunding the United Nations within the first week, it's all a joke, right? Now people keep saying, MAGA guys will go, no, you know, he's threatened the United Nations. I'm like, get out of here with that punk stuff. What do you mean threaten? We don't have time for threats. Cut them off. Start banging their doors, right? I mean, this is very serious. They are an enemy formation. They're destroying Europe. They're destroying the United States. They're destroying Japan, and we're funding them. The number one funder of the United Nations and IOM is the United States, right? We're doing it. I've been in IOM offices all over the place, down in Buenos Aires recently, right? And went in there asking for a job, and they said, well, we're not hiring right now because Trump got elected and he might cut our funding. Now, bingo, that was important information. I mean, they are dependent on American money. Cut it, cut every dime. Not only cut it, start doing the lawfare on them. I mean, these people are human smugglers. They're human traffickers, and yet they're still intact. Their offices are still open. We can get in the car and drive over there. The only thing that's happened in the Darien Gap, the only honest thing that's happened is the water spigot's been turned off. So only little drip drops are coming through now. It's not the fire hose that was coming through. However, the architecture's still in place. All the plumbing is still there. They're still funded. They're still operating. They're still invading Europe. They're still invading Japan. They're still invading Canada. It's just stopped at our border. I mean, listen, those who are new to me and never seen my face before, you might be like, who's this crazy guy? Spend the next 2 or 3 hours looking at my work from Iraq, Afghanistan, Thailand, Japan, and start grading when I got it wrong and when I got it right? I'm very careful with my words. I do a lot of research. What I see right now is probably the compass needles are all pointing, the flow will start again, right? That's what it looks like. It looks like to me we're going to have severe invasions in the future. That's the way it looks now, until we start dismantling the architecture, taking out the United Nations, taking out highest, start stigmatizing these people that are donating to highest and Red Cross and Doctors Without Morals and all these different groups. Fly down to Panama, go to the Darien Gap. You don't have to go deep inside where it's dangerous. You can go to the edge, go to San Vicente camp. Highest took their sign off their door since we published it. I took Brett Weinstein down there, took Laura Loomer, I took congressmen, I took 60 people there, right? And they've all seen it. Everybody knows it's there. Their office was open as of last week. They're still operating there.
You were telling me about a politician that you saw at the Darien Gap land in a helicopter right in front of you and aid what was going on there with the migration. Can you describe that?
Alejandro Mayorkas. Alejandro Mayorkas was the Department of Homeland Security. He is the child of Cuban immigrants, Sephardic Jews, so he's Jewish. That's why he was a board member on HIAS. Mayorkas was a board member on HIAS. Mayorkas was a board member on HIAS. Go to the HIAS.org website and you'll see their congratulatory letter that he's leaving HIAS board and going to become the Department of Homeland Security chief. And then he flew down to Darien as Department of Homeland Security chief and brought more money and increased the flows. So HIAS installed somebody into the Department of Homeland Security and then increased the flows.
Who else is responsible? What other names are there, donors?
You go to HIAS.org and you can spend, a long time looking at the donors that are public, right? I don't know how many are private. I don't know that at all. And of course, there's Catholic charities. There's Lutheran services. There are Norwegian refugee councils. But when it comes to the Darien, the chief driving force down there is HIAS, right? HIAS is got an intricate structure that's pulling people from Africa in the Middle East, and some of the maps are on their website, right? Like, for instance, one Angolan man that I talked with about 3 months ago, maybe, in the Darien, he was saying, so he was stuck in this camp called Las Blancas, which HIAS has a tent there, and he was stuck in that camp for, at that point, more than a month, I think 40 days, somewhere around there. And it's on my video, but and I'll give it to you, and you can look at it yourself. But he said specifically, HIAS is not helping me. His wife got shot. So his wife got shot in the Darien Gap, so she was in a hospital. So he was stuck in the camp there while his wife recovers. So he's there with his children. We talked with the children. He was an Angolan preacher, as I recall, and he's stuck in the camp. And he's like, specifically said, HIAS is not helping us. I mean, that just came from, we didn't ask about HIAS. That's how important HIAS is here, right? So when I'm up on the Texas-U.S. border or all across the border, you'll hear me talking about Catholic charities. But when it's down here, HIAS.
And when you talk about mass migration, is that basically an attack to destroy America? Is that how you see it?
It's weaponized migration. There's many weapons that are used in war. Most of the types of warfare, most people actually can't recognize them, like drug warfare. That's why I go against doper Joe Rogan all the time. If you want to subdue people, the most effective weapon is intoxicants like alcohol, any kind of drugs that obviously hijack your prefrontal cortex or bypass it, right? Intoxicants. And this has been through space and time, right? Again, this is nothing new under the sun. And when I see these people in these major podcasts getting drunk and doing drugs in front of young people, that's a clear enemy act. They're clearly owned by somebody. Joe Rogan doesn't make all of his money by advertising, right? All these guys are, Space Boy that's smoking dope there with Joe Rogan, in front of tens of millions of young people. That was enemy action right there. One of the major weapons is intoxicants. When I was recently down in Argentina, I went to a cannabis expo. As soon as you say cannabis, that's like saying Jew. The dope smokers who are going to defend their bongs are going to go like, they're going to go after you, right? As soon as you say cannabis, they're going to go, what about alcohol, right? They're going to go, what about this? What about that, right? Here's the bottom line. When I went to that cannabis expo and people are asking me about their thoughts or my thoughts on, is Argentina a good place to move to? And I'm like, as somebody who studies war and has for many years around the world, spent a lot of time in wars, when I see a cannabis expo in Buenos Aires and I went to Masaco, no way I would move there, no way. I know they're under attack. And there's all these government agencies that are up on the wall that's supporting the Cannabis Expo. I've seen what dope has done to my country. Various intoxicants, whether they're prescriptions or cannabis or alcohol. Everybody watching this, I assure you, has had at least one drug addict or one alcoholic or one gambling fiend or something that has really challenged your family. Everybody. I don't know any example where that has not been true. And I've asked so many people, do you have a family that's pure with never any problems, right? Extended family, cousins and whatnot. I've never met somebody that didn't. And the thing is getting one drug addict in your family is like getting a Hellfire missile through the roof of your house, right? You can have 10 people under your roof, and only one of them is a drunk or a druggie or has some other related problems, and that disrupts your entire home. It disrupts many things. That's why it's a perfect weapon that our enemies use, right? They use intoxicants, whether it be alcohol or whatever, right? So when you see major bloggers like Joe Rogan smoking the dope, you know, when he recently said, I don't know, a couple weeks ago that he's stopping drinking, I immediately messaged to Alex Jones because so many people are like, do you want to get on Joe Rogan's show? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get on Dope or Joe's show. And then of course, people that think at very surface level, they're like, wow, you should get on Joe Rogan's show and you know, he has all these great guests and you can reach millions of people. Don't you think about that, Michael? Yeah, trust me, I think about that. Trust me, I do information war, right? And I study information war and I do information war, right? And I'm doing it right now by calling him out. That's information war. I'm chopping at his tree, right? And he just announced, so I messaged to, I was on live with Alex Jones one time and Alex said, you know, he's known Joe for 26 years and he can maybe get me on a show. And I'm like, I'm not going on Dope or Joe's show. I said it live, right? I'm not gonna go on his show. I don't wanna go on a show. I'm not going to bring one extra viewer that he can then advertise his dope to, right? Because that is an enemy attack. That's information war.
When you're talking about this kind of weaponization of drugs, can you touch on a little bit of the fentanyl and these other chemicals that are coming across the border and how that's affecting the United States?
Yeah, I mean, I read one book on fentanyl. I don't remember the name now. It's been some years, but because it is such a problem. I mean, you go across the United States. I've been up to Portland and seen how that is, and they're handing out actually drug paraphernalia, which we got some from, they're just handing out in a church parking lot. They do the same in other countries. They have vending machines now in Canada that do it. Or many Americans will have seen parts of San Francisco or Los Angeles or many cities now. They're just filled with zombies, and they're straight up zombies. I don't know if even cleaning them up will be able to repair their brains. I do not know. But I mean, stooped over and really out of it and dangerous, quite dangerous. You know, high levels of, they don't have a prefrontal cortex working anymore. They're down to the animal instincts. I am hungry, time to eat. I need my drugs, time to get drugs. He has money, kill, right? I mean, it's down to that. That's what our enemies do. So fentanyl obviously is something that's used by China. One thing I've noticed, by the way, in my studies and travels around the world, cultures and people, because this seems to scale up fractally and down fractally, the ones who are professional victims are always predators. The ones who are always like, oh, you're hurting me, oh, you hurt my feelings, or gosh, look at us, so therefore you owe us. Those are your predators, right? Hardcore predators, right? So anytime you see that, beware, distance yourself. The communist Chinese are always victims of 100 years of, you know, shame or whatever, right? Now, as soon as we talk about drugs in China, many people watching this, and watch me read your mind, many people, you're gonna go, well, they're just getting us back for the opium wars. Did you just think that? If you just thought that, that's Chinese information war. They actually implant that answer into you, right? So these are answers that are implanted, right? When I go back to the United States, I can see that my country is not as crisp as it used to be. The American mind is not as sharp as it used to be, the collective mind. It doesn't mean everybody's not. There's some of the most brilliant people in the world are clearly Americans, and some of the most serious people are clearly Americans. But our general level is diminishing, which makes us less resilient as a country. The average American seems to have no idea. Here comes a giant shipping container ship. The average American seems to have no idea that how important this canal is. No idea. They're like, Panama Canal. I mean, I have a friend that worked on the canal for, I don't know, 20 years or something. He said many Americans, when they come in, they literally ask him, how is life on the island? Now, they think this is an island, actually, Panama, and they think that the canal, you can just take a boat and go right through it. They don't realize that it's got locks, and they don't have any idea why. They don't have any idea because in the information war in the United States, they've taken Panama Canal off the table. So it's not in our collective consciousness. It's not because everybody's collectively stupid. It's because they've got our attention on something else. And forget about that. Forget about this artery in your neck. It's not a big deal if Chinese take that artery. Oh yeah, they're nice Chinese. So you're just gonna give them this artery. That's what this is. That's how important this is to the United States. Not just for commerce, but for our military. And if we don't have it, they will, by the way.
And are there humans being trafficked and drugs trafficked through the Panama Canal?
Now, are there humans in those containers? I don't know, because they would be in the containers. Are there drugs in those containers? I don't know about those containers, but the chances that drugs are coming through the canal are quite significant, to put it mildly. But of course, I don't have X-ray vision, but I'm told that some of the trafficking of the fentanyl products, one of the routes, there's different routes, but will go up through here and they get, and they go to Belize as one of the routes, right? And so some apparently go through here and up to Belize, and from Belize they get smuggled into Mexico and that sort of thing.
Like, so some of the precursor chemicals that they cook these with.
Yeah. So if you were going to destroy the United States, you'd do it with drugs. Again, when I bring up cannabis, you'll have people launching off their couches, because that's where they're at, saying, I have a right to do this. That's part of the information war, is that you have a right. You're exercising your freedom. It's like the most dark art ever. Like, here, smoke dope because you're free to do it. Yeah, please do. And then they're gonna steal everything you've got. It may not be directly, but indirectly it'll happen, right? One of the principal weapons, besides intoxicants, is just demographic warfare, weapons of mass migration. A socialist even wrote a book about that. I'll show it to you later today. It's called Weapons of Mass Migration. This is the title of the book. Many countries have been destroyed, or peoples have been destroyed, or kingdoms have been destroyed. But look at Rome. I mean, one of the principal ways that Rome fell was migration, right? It's just a common weapon. It's a common weapon in war. It's probably more common than firearms because it was used before firearms. And I mean, in the history of warfare, it certainly would be more common than firearms. Replacement, look at the United States or America. When Americans came, like my family came in 1609, or part of my family, my mother's side, and they got shipwrecked on Bermuda. And they were shipwrecked there for like 10 months. And then they had to make a new ship and then go to Jamestown. And then they just made more babies. They made more babies than the Indians made. And they just kept coming over on ships and ships and ships, right? And before you know it, we outbred and outshipped people to America. And then we made the United States, right? So that's how it happened, and that's what'll happen here as well. The Hong Kongers would say, before the final spasms when China took over, they just brought like 100 to 150 mainland Chinese in per day. They did it for years. And they took over positions as teachers, politicians, policemen. They changed the history books. They're telling children in Hong Kong, don't speak Cantonese, you should speak Mandarin, because Cantonese is basically for low class, right? That's what they would say. And so it was the information war and the demographic warfare, and they just slowly filled up the bathtub, which is what they're doing here and many other places. And so, like, for instance, Masako Ganaha and I, we went to San Francisco a few years ago because I think that the Chinese want to make, like, San Francisco their first capital in the United States. And I think it's quite clear, actually. Now, when I say that, Americans go, it's impossible. I'm like, okay, whatever. They took this canal, that was impossible, right? I mean, the canal has been taken from us, from the United States, right? And not China has taken it yet, but they took Hong Kong, right? They took Tibet. And when I say they, that's not just Chinese. It's not difficult to do these things if you know what you're doing and you steadily apply the pressures, and you, over time, it might take several generations, it might take 100 years, but this won't. We're already 100 years into it. You know what I mean? We're not like they're just starting today. I mean, this is a very evolved structure already, and a mature structure that's unfolding. And Americans, again, are stuck let's say a critical mass of Americans is more stuck on, I've got my freedom to do whatever, but you've been tricked into thinking, or many Americans have been tricked into thinking that those habits of not paying attention to things like the Panama Canal, but paying attention to their bong or whatever is freedom. It's not.
And how much does China play a part in the drug war and mass migration?
Huge. I mean, China, or let's say BlackRock that wants to buy that port. Larry Fink, he's an Israeli. He has a U.S. passport as well. He wants to keep the migration open. And he says it with his mouth, right? Like in clear words. The way, as clear as I just said it, he says it. He wants to keep the flows going into the United States. It's an absolute weapon to destroy the United States. And Trump is trying to give it to BlackRock, who wants to continue the invasion.
And will that invasion start, say, when another person comes in after Trump, is what you're thinking?
I don't know, because they're not doing any mass deportations. Why? I mean, we saw Eric Prince came up with his plan to deport people by airplane, $25 billion bucks. And I messaged him immediately, like, why would we use airplanes? We can use ships. We have incredible waterways. You can ship people up. You can send ships up to Memphis, Tennessee. We have the most incredible waterways in the world. We can have ships at all the ports loading people up and shipping them back. We have the resources to get ready to go and attack Iran, right? But we don't have the resources to send a few ships up there, I mean, yeah, actually we do. We don't have the will, or I have the will, but the guy in charge doesn't, right? The guy in charge. And so, yeah. So what's actually going on? What we see is the United Nations has not been defunded. What we see is none of these people are being really held to account. U.S. aid, of course, has had some defunding. That's great. Keep going. You got to take out United Nations. I've been saying that since long before the inauguration, since before the election, since years. You've got to defund the United Nations. People have been saying that since before I was even born. People have been saying we have to defund the United Nations. And now we've got this made-up country is what the United Nations is.
Last question, because it's getting hot. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking we move and continue somewhere else maybe. But I haven't heard the BlackRock connection. We're looking at this big shipping yard that BlackRock wants to purchase. What does BlackRock have to do with migration?
Well, Larry Fink, the CEO, wants to continue because he thinks it's better for his labor cost. Because they're looking at it not from an American perspective. What's an American company? What's a Canadian company, right? He's Israeli, right? I mean, with an American passport as well. And so he doesn't appear to care about the United States. I mean, that's the way it looks to me, right? It looks to me like he doesn't care. And it looks to me like basically Trump is just part of the game. I mean, actually, it's quite obvious. It'll be obvious to people in the future when it's too late. It'll be obvious to people right now who would actually or already thrown this out the window and say, I'll never listen to that again, blah, 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 blah. But in the future, it'll be obvious. It'll be too late, like many things. Like things I said about the Afghan war and all these things, or the Ukraine thing. They're obvious now, but I was saying before they were obvious and turned out right? Because I do this for a living. I'm there on the ground constantly studying, hitting the books with the right people. It takes years to build up a knowledge set, an architecture of knowledge that allows you to sort of see through this haze, right? And it's not like everything's always crystal clear. That's untrue. That is just not a fact. But some things are quite obvious. For instance, that we're being set up for famines. That's quite obvious, right? But people keep saying, where's those famines? I'm like, stand by. It's very clear that the conditions are being set. It's all about setting conditions, right? Or the demographic conditions that are being set in the United States for eventual takeover. Ireland, right? Now people are paying a lot of attention to Ireland, but I was there several years ago warning about Ireland. Now it's in the news, and McGregor went to see Trump and yada, yada, yada. But in reality, what's really going to happen? What's really going to happen? Okay, so everybody knows Ireland's being invaded, and they continue to be invaded. And the Irish are like, we need help. Like, Ireland, I keep telling Irish. I mean, I talk with Irish constantly. There's nobody going to come help you. A one of the biggest components of warfare is setting conditions for your success and your enemy's failure, right? So if you wanted to weaken a country, intoxicants are a great way to do it because you're weakening them on many different levels. One is just education. You're weakening them economically. You're weakening family structures, attacking family structures. So you're setting conditions for other things. Once you win that drug component, now you've really hijacked some critical mass of the population. You can just start bringing millions of people over the borders and nobody stands up. There's only a few of us that come down here like, look, we got to do something, right? And of course, if I had, 10 million of me, I would just close the border, but I don't. And so I have to do what I can do, which is at least come and show what's happening, right? And so, but there we go. But they've dumbed down America, drugged up America, and drugged it up, dumbed it down, right? And they're just walked in and they're happy in their prison for now. For now they're happy, but now the borders are wide open and there's still people that are like, yeah, well, they're doing jobs that we wouldn't do, yada, yada, yada. Oh, really? Obviously, that's a talking point. Laken Riley's murderer went right over this bridge. She came out of the Darien Gap, he came out of the Darien Gap, and he went right over this bridge, right behind you. All this traffic, one day that was his bus, right? And his brothers came months later. That's the sound of a bus now. He came on a bus like that from the Darien Gap, and he went up to the United States and he murdered Laken Riley, right? And so many rapists and murderers have come over this bridge, and people will say it's impossible to close Darien Gap. If I had a table of Army generals and anyone that said it's impossible to close the Darien Gap, I would say you're dismissed.
So the United States should close down the Darien Gap in your opinion?
What we have to do, Panama wants to close it. The United States is the one that forced them to keep it open. The United States forced them to keep it open. Yep, straight up. That's when you have people like Jack Posobiec coming up saying we should put sanctions on Colombia or Panama. It's like, hello, Jack. I've offered you many times to come down here. You've always turned it down. You get a little nervous, a little scared or whatever. But the bottom line is we spent months in the Darien Gap, right? And many people, I've taken 60 people down there, right? Roughly 60, maybe a little bit more now. And they all know Panama wants to close the Darien Gap. It's the United States and Mayorkas who brought money and did political pressure to keep it open. And then we blame Panama, right? It's like the Border Patrol who blames the Mexican cartel. It's why Border Patrol loads the buses. It's like Governor Abbott of Texas loading buses and sending people to Massachusetts or New York. And my Texan friends, I spent a lot of time in Texas, they're like, yay, look what Abbott's doing. You were wrong about Abbott. And I'm like, think. Abbott is not sending them back to Mexico. He's sending them to New York. New York is actually part of the United States. And Massachusetts is too, right? Why isn't he sending them back to Mexico, right? No, he's sending them deeper. He's clearing the banks of the Rio Grande so more can come across, right? This isn't deep thinking. It's kind of obvious, but the answers are painful. And so that people won't accept those painful answers when somebody will give them the morphine of a lie, right? And that's what it is. The lies are giving them the morphine that they need and until they die. And that's what's happening. People have to realize this is a very comprehensive war. It didn't just start yesterday. It started a long time ago. And it's quite intense. There's many components to it. It's not over, but if Americans don't stand up and be American, it will be over and we will definitely lose, right? We're losing the canal right now, despite whatever Trump has been saying. I'm here all the time. I get paid to be right. He gets paid to do whatever he's told to do. I don't know what he's doing, right? But at the end of the day, yes, the border has been effectively strangled down, but the architecture is still there for the invasion. And that tells me that at best, that's incredible incompetence, like over-the-top incompetence. But he's not that incompetent. Again, you can't reconcile the equation with 5D chess. That equation doesn't reconcile, right? It just doesn't. And the equation doesn't reconcile that you would squeeze down on the border, but leave all the plumbing in place. Why would you do that when it's very easy to disassemble it?